welcome to the Plax Podcast. And today we have two wonderful people. I think Sudesh was telling us earlier in the background that he's been all over the country and the world.
Yeah.
So we have experience, but I hope you have experience with these cards because
we are not
I
threatened.
I just don't want to.
We shall not be threatened.
Oh, awesome! So
You made these cards, so
You know the backs of the card.
we have Mark.
Thank you for having us
On the podcast. We
It's
have
such a great
Sudesh,
time.
wonderful man.
pleasure.
We have
Nyana Kakoma.
yes, Nyana Kakoma, whose mind we all want to hear from today because of the creativity, the wisdom, the knowledge, and all the other things. You guys, first wait, I've not yet even opened my cards.
But I think this is
that
flower.
Hey.
You have to be careful.
They are fine.
On another day we have fines, but
Today we're
since we
starting
are
now.
initiating,
Wait.
So it's great to have you guys on the podcast.
Yeah.
Maybe to start us off, I would start with Nyana on the point of obviously the big elephant in the room, Oyto, the beautiful game of Oyto. What's the journey like for you? What gets you to the point of you want to create this game? What inspired it?
So I am a publisher, editor, started as a writer, started so many stories as a blog because I was traveling as an African author and nobody knew Ugandan writers. They kept talking about Idi Amin, not as a writer, but as the Ugandan they
That's the
knew.
Ugandan they knew.
And then maybe Doreen Bangana once in a while. And Kansime had started coming up. But it made me insecure as a writer. What is this job I'm going to do that nobody is going to know about? And so I started a blog called So Many Stories with the idea that as Ugandans, we have so many stories to tell. Even if you grew up in the same house, you experience things differently. You may have gone to an auntie's home, but the way you tell the story is going to be so different.
Sure.
And so I would go to, if there's a poetry recital, I would go there. If there was a book launch, I would go there. If there was a big editor coming in from the UK, I would meet them somehow and do interviews. And I was doing it alone.
Yeah.
But after 3 months, people thought it had been there for a while. But please remember that I had experience having written creatively, but also worked in a newsroom before New Vision and Daily Monitor.
Yeah.
So I did have experience in writing. And my husband is also a software engineer, so he could do the best website for me.
Yeah.
That helped. And so when the blog came out, it looks like a very professional blog, but it was being run by just one person. So then that grew. I got internship to do publishing in Cape Town. That inspired me to now turn it into a publishing house. And for me, one of the things that I've learned from working for myself and doing all these things is that your work always leads you to the next place where you should go. Yes. So we start the publishing house. We launch books. Then someone is like, "Oh, but we have kids who are reading. What do we do for them?" So we start book clubs for children, and they would meet around Kampala. By the time we stopped in just before the pandemic, we were in about 4 areas, including Entebbe. So then they start saying, "Oh, so now, but books are expensive." We started a library, so we run a library now for children.
Yeah.
But along the way, when people would bring their kids for book club, they'd say, "My kid is scribbling with things in her notebook. Can you teach them how to write?" And I'm a really good teacher. I teach writing. I said, "Yeah, let's teach the kids how to write." So we had a writing workshop. We got a house and the kids were there for 10 days. they'll be dropped off in the morning. In the morning, we'll do the theory part, and then in the afternoon, we'll do the practical part. So if in the morning we're teaching a character, how do you as a writer create a character? In the afternoon, we had Anne Kansime come and talk about how she created the character Kansime, because Anne Kansime are different.
Yeah.
So we had songwriters coming in, we had a poet come in, we had a playwright come in to show the kids that this is how far your writing can go. It can be expressed in different ways. So there's a thing in writing called show, don't tell. If I'm writing a really good book and I'm a really good writer, if I want to write that Mark is sad, I don't say, Bambi, then Mark was sad. No. A good writer says Mark entered the room, he threw down his bag, he sat in the chair, he held his face in his hands, and tears started streaming down his face. That's a good writer. He's showing you.
I feel that story. Has touched you.
Yeah. Which is different from Mark was sad, So I was struggling with how do you teach this concept to 8-year-olds? Because we had 8-year-olds up to 12-year-olds. So there's a game.
I'm imagining like these kids should be like Kampala parents, because I mean some kid from old Kampala.
Well, if that kid in old Kampala was exposed to such resources, they would, because we all have stories. And I don't know if you grew up with cousins who would just tell you a story and you feel like you're there, even just because they're in the village, it doesn't mean that they can't create. But those are the people we attracted because of the money we were charging. So those are the kind of children we did attract. They are also reading children, which makes better writers, but they were curious children. So now I was wondering, how do I teach this concept to children that young? And I remember the word game, a similar word game that existed on the market that I had played before, where you guess, you have to describe the word and give clues without saying the word. So we got manila paper, because we are a children's friendly organization, designed the manila paper, and we wrote with our hands a few words. We wanted them to have Ugandan words, of course, because also our organization is about things that are Ugandan. We took that game. The kids were brutal. Like there was there were siblings, a boy and a girl, and they were in boarding school. And they were finishing each other's sentences. They were on the same team. They were not playing, because you're thinking kids, they'll be like, no. And the word was ban, B-U-N, like ban. And the brother did like this. And the sister said, ban.
Wow.
I was like, oh God, is this even real? Like, what is going on?
That's sank.
So I was like, what is this? What is happening? I had played that other game with adults, but it wasn't Ugandan. So this one had like posho and beans. It had, cassava. It had, things that Ugandan kids would know. So that happened. It happened in like this December, and I forgot about it. But one of the things we used to do are bookmarks, because we are a publishing house, and I asked that certain bookmarks be made. They were purple, yellow, and green, because those were the company colors we were using at that time. And then when they brought the cards, I looked at the bookmarks. I looked at them and said, this is what the word game is going to look like. It's hard to explain because sometimes the thing has existed in your mind, but it hasn't physically manifested, and then one thing happens and it
just comes out.
So I sat down the team. I said, we're going to create a word game. We opened a Google Doc and we said all of us have to submit 10 words every day, and they should be have Ugandan, whatever. They should be child friendly, because at that time we were thinking about children. So what name do we give it?
Who calls it Oyto? That's the part I've been waiting. I've been waiting for that
I feel
part.
like you're going to be so disappointed. I called it Oyto, but I can't say how. So I think I have we had a notebook. Even my husband, as a software engineer, he has a notebook where he just writes names of things. That, one day I'll have a product and it will need naming. So he writes things down.
Yeah.
So there is a thing like that. And we had been writing. And then the word Oyto came. It came with an exclamation mark in my head.
Wow.
And I said, guys, we have a name. It's now Oyto. And then we started now coming up with words. We're about 4 people at that time who were working with so many stories. They've since gone on to do greater things. And then finally I had to come and edit and just go through and say, okay, this can stay and this we can keep.
Wow.
Interesting.
After about 3 months, we launched.
Yes, again. Sudesh, you deal a lot with
Yes, the game is
as
not
we
shifting.
continue playing.
The
I
game
know,
must
we need
shift.
the-
Let me help Sudesh. Let me help Sudesh.
You deal a lot with, and as I ask you the questions, you deal a lot with helping people express their minds, like getting to that point in the mind where they have there's something in their mind they want to express but they're not able to. I think that's something you do so well. I've been on some of the trainings. How do you get to that? How do you get to that place of this is something I can help people with, and why is it so important to you to make sure people actually get to express themselves the right way in organizations, but also as people?
Yeah, all right. That's a great question. I left my wallet there. I'll see you after. Not yet. We on set. So I remember the first job that I had immediately after university. I was working for this company, and I used to go to office, and I did not really like the job. And so I looked for a way to make it fun, because again, if I stayed home, my parents would ask me, why are you here? You know? So I'm at that job, and every day I go in, and I would go in early. I would get there by 6. Now, I don't like the job, but I get there at 6. So why do I get there at 6? I get there at 6 so that I can do the things that I like before 8 when the rest of the guys come in.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So I watch a documentary, I do different things. And then one time my boss phoned me and he tells me, can I see you? And he tells me, you know what, I don't like you to play gospel music in this office. I'm going to ask HR to give you a warning later.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, okay, this is 6:30 a.m., this is not
nobody's
company
here.
time, but I was given a warning later, and
Playing it so loudly? Was it like a chidongo?
yeah, but it was off company time, so I thought 6:30 a.m. no one is going to show up.
Yeah.
And so I started going back to office, but I was a bit afraid. And then where I used to sit, there was this old man. I think he was about 63, and he would come to see the manager, and he was so afraid. And I told him, why are you so afraid? He's like, man, they can chase me anytime. And immediately within me, I started dreaming about building an organization that would help people be empowered to come to work and be independent and know that they are showing up for themselves and think for themselves and not be at the mercy of the organization. And I thought about it, but it looked like far-fetched. Like, is there something like that in the market? It's not there. So I went on, I worked, and to fast forward, I started the company, but I did not know what to name it. So we looked for words, ego, then we say, okay, we were 3. There was a lady called Diana. There was Billy. Billy is now a manager in ABSA. So we said, let's put together our names. It wasn't working. So I told them, you know what? Let's call this company Sudesh. And so we all laughed. We all laughed. But I asked them, what do you think when you think about the name Sudesh? And we thought it was a joke. And before I knew it, the company was called Sudesh.
They are loud.
Yeah, they are loud. They are loud. And then
I
when we
actually
opened,
think it's an Indian company. Yes.
yeah, and so after they allowed, and then that's when we're like, okay, what are we going to do? Like, where do we start from? And like, how do we even convince people that something like that exists where I empower you? And they're like, no, there are guys who are doing training. And like, no, we don't really want to do training. We want something more. And so Diana, the lady we started with, had a PhD in supply chain management. And I was like, you know what? Let's just roll. Just, let's just start with supply chain. I don't know even what the things are. But so I used to study her PhD books, just to make sure I understand what we are doing. But I had no clue what I did. So we went broke, and I just went back home. I was like, what should I do? And during the time, that's when a friend of mine told me, but you know what? There's a guy I want you to meet. I think he will guide you, which brings me to the point that, there's a scripture that says that you have so many instructors, but you have few fathers. Yeah. And my experience being in the business world, I found out that so many people are orphans in the business world. There are no fathers. They are, we've learned on the spiritual side, we have fathers. Yeah. In the business side, kind of everyone that does their own thing. Sometimes it catches on, sometimes it doesn't catch on, but you have very few fathers and mothers. So I was privileged to be connected to a gentleman, and the first thing he asked me is, if you had all the money in the world, what would you do? I told him, I love people. I want to help people. I'm not sure exactly how, but I want to help people. Yeah. And I told him something so strange. I was actually thinking about it yesterday, and I was like, oh my God, what did I do? I told him, I'm going to work for you, and I don't want you to give me a salary, but I'm going to...
You had the money.
No, I didn't. That's why it was crazy, because I had to do other things on the side to keep me afloat. But,
and you were going to do that full time?
Yes. So I used to be in office by 6, but the arrangement was I keep the company on the side. But sooner or later it got so busy, and he used to take me around the world, and all he made me do was one thing. He would give me his cup and tell me, make me tea. And I make you tea. Man, I have so many degrees. So anyway,
when you offered yourself.
Yes. So right. I make the guy tea, and my parents would ask me, but what do you do? Are you a teacher? You go around with this guy?
I do some stuff.
Was he a teacher? Was he a trainer? What industry was he in?
He was a coach, what you would call a business coach. Yeah, and so every time at the end of every project, he asked me, what have you learned? And I told him, was I meant to learn something?
I made it.
Different types of things. And what used to go on in my head was, does this guy get me on the plane to make him tea? Really? But he was teaching me something. And then one time I went and told him, but what are you trying to teach me? And he told me, Sudesh, you're so full of yourself.
Only a father can say that.
Yeah, he told me, you're so full of yourself, and until you really break down and learn, you're not going to understand what I'm trying to teach you. So many people have come to me to be taught, but not all people are teachable. I went back and I was like, okay, now I don't know how full I am of myself, but let me what does it mean? But I went on to do the simple stuff that he was teaching me, and this took a long time, and it was as if it was a dream. For 1.5 years I made the guy tea. 1.5 years. Wow. No salary, no nothing. I was doing I used to do research.
But man, you were on flight.
I mean, you are
Who
catching
cares?
flights.
Who cares about
Man,
flights?
not coming in. It's a flight. I can catch a flight
When
for
you
free.
meet your friends and then they're talking about what they're doing at work, what would you say?
I think I was sort of so focused on what I was doing.
Yeah.
I didn't know where it was going to take me. I had moments of frustration where I went to him and I was like, you know what? I think this thing is not working out. I just want to go and get a job. And then he would tell me, okay, how much is the job going to give you? And then I remember one time he goes and picks all the invoices and he shows me how much he was making in a day. And he tells me, if you can sit and learn, you make this and more. If you go back right now, it will take you long.
Sudesh, I must ask, where are you getting transport? How are you buying clothes?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was doing research for university students in the UK at night.
In the UK.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would burn the midnight oil just to do research to get money to get me by.
Okay.
And at that time, I'd moved back home.
Ah,
Yeah.
yeah. So you
every
had
day
food
you
at
get
least. At least you had some.
So I
huh?
had food. Yeah, but after one, I remember this day as if it was yesterday. We were in Nairobi, and I'm on. I'm showing, not telling. Yeah? So, we're in Nairobi in a Panari hotel. We're just finished doing a training, and I'm on the 7th floor looking at the game park, the Nairobi game park, and I hear a knock on my door, and it was this gentleman. He's called Coach Phil, and he had an envelope, and he gave me the envelope, and I opened it. It had lots of dollars, and he asked me a question that he had asked me for 1.5 years. He asked me, "What did you learn on this trip?" And I told him, I learned that it's never about me, it's about the people that we come to serve. He told me, now you're ready.
Wow.
And from then onwards, it's been an upward trend. So
Were those dollars for you?
yeah, there were dollars for me. He was telling me,
finally.
like, he saw that I was struggling, so he was like, you know what, you're being faithful,
Yeah.
and now it's time for us to get to do the work. And but during that 1.5 years, I found my voice, and I found what I do today, and I found my niche. So when they say that purpose is found while you're serving, I bear witness to that fact. Yeah. So that's a bit of my story.
You guys have said
Sudesh playing here.
Sudesh playing as he plays. You guys have mentioned something in both your stories that I would really want us to talk about. Are you PT?
Yeah.
Not today.
Wow. It's coming back to me.
We can help you.
I started laughing.
And that theme is teamwork, by building teams. Both of you talked about having the right people around you. You have the right people around you, but I was told something, and I would like you guys to probably expand on it. That usually, before you even start something, it's best to have the right team in place. When you were creating Oyto, you had a certain people around you helped you create the team. The same thing with coming up with Sudesh International Consults. How have you found it important to have the right people around you before you even say we are taking the ship in this direction? And how have you managed to steer that ship when you're now on the water? Probably I'll start with Nyana.
I think those are not things I thought about when I was starting, to be honest. I knew what I wanted. I wanted Ugandan books. I wanted Ugandan authors to be celebrated. I wanted kids to be able to go to their parents and say, I'm going to be a writer, and for them to say, good job, you're on the right track, which is not what people are saying yet. So I can't say I thought that far. It's the thing with creatives, the idea is there, but you're not really thinking about how far you're going to go. And I've had to learn along the way. I've hired some wrong people. I've fired people, which was extremely hard for me because the first person I fired, I remember thinking, I have failed. I have failed to teach them. I have failed to make them useful. But sometimes people are not going to learn. They're not going to be taught. They're not teachable. They could be in the wrong place, So I've had to learn along the way. I end up a lot of times hiring women. Now we work a lot with children, so parents generally feel safer when their children are with women. It's always important for me to hire someone who loves how to read, not loves how to, but loves books. Because you can't sell something that you're not interested in. We are always talking about words, talking about how words can change you, how they can change your life, because even Oyto, they are just words that are changing people's lives. You can't sell that if you're not a reader, if you do not believe in that power. But also there's the side on the part on me where I have to help them buy the vision and believe the vision and believe that suddenly words are important, or at least to help them see that this is going somewhere. So those, I don't think that thing of teams, even sales, even those things sometimes don't come. The idea comes and you're spending sleepless nights, and everywhere you go you're seeing something wrong, and like you go to an office and you're like, why are they doing it like that? And everyone is going on with their lives, they're okay, things are okay, but for you it bothers you. But then once you start, things you realize, now I need people because I can't do everything myself. But then what kind of person do I want? And sometimes that can be determined by money, like what can I afford at the moment. But also there's also the hope that I'll get the person who will catch the vision. So I'll say that's something I've had to learn along the way. One of the things I always tell people who I hire is that I just want you to be different whenever you decide to leave. And so you have to be ready to learn, to receive me as a person who's going to teach you something, and I'm also willing to learn from you. I'm also quite passionate about creating a good environment for women to thrive, because the challenges women have in our workplace are quite different, and I don't want to behave like a man, like someone who does not understand those experiences. So if a team member says, cramps are killing me, how do we make that environment safe for her to come to work and still be productive, even though cramps may be killing her? I have mothers on my team now. If she says, I spent the night awake because a child had a fever, how am I going to make room for someone like that in my organization? So for me, I've had to learn some of those things, and also to be intentional, to say that I know what it means, like to be up at 3 a.m. You love your job, but you've been up at 3 a.m. Can I then come in later and work later? Like how do I make, because now we are in a generation where women can't stay home. Their brain and is needed in the companies, and their money is needed at home. But how do we make it a safe and a place where they can thrive? So for me, those are things that I can't say that I knew what teams I wanted when I was starting out. There are things I've had to learn along the way. Yeah.
Probably. I also have a question. Maybe I'll let Sudesh answer this. How do you strike the balance between friendship, like that friendly kind of environment at work, but also maintain the business serious face of it at the same place?
Okay. Can I tell a story?
Tell us.
Yes, tell us.
We're here for the stories.
So a story is told of this gentleman. He's in his 70s, about to retire, and his son has been working for the company. So they have a factory, and the son is being mentored to take over. But the son has a problem with anger. So one day the gentleman is moving in the factory, and then he sees his son at a distance, and you can tell that people are having a go at each other, even if you're not close. And so he tells the son, he signals to the son to meet him in his office. And when they go there, he tells him, son, I wear 2 hats around here. The first hat is I'm your dad. The second hat is I'm your boss. Now, let me put on the boss hat.
Okay.
You see, son, what you've just done is totally disrespectful. We honor employees here, and because of that, you're fired. Okay. Say, son, now let me put on my dad hat. Oh, son, I just heard you lost your job. How can I be of help? Okay. So, here's the point, and I found out that I work with my wife, and before we even started working together after getting married, we took time to study and read about family businesses and how they operate and the rules of engagement. And we found out that the problem is not that you cannot be friendly, but you have to set expectations from the very beginning, and know the rules of engagement at work and know the rules of engagement at home.
Yeah.
So when I'm at home, I'm the husband, I'm the father, and I wear that hat. When we're at work, she can have a go at me in the meeting, and she's not having a go at me as her husband. She's having a go at me as a teammate, and I'll take that.
Yeah.
But in most cases, the reason that actually comes in is because, I start my thing, and Walter is my friend, and I tell him, what, nobody, come. Let's start this thing, and we've started from a friendly basis, and I've not made clear the rules of engagement. I'll say, you know what, this you're my friend. Having said that, I'm bringing you on the team. I think this is where you can feel this. So I expect when we're doing business, I expect this and this and this and this. I'll check in on you. I'll hold you accountable. Please hold me accountable. We can disagree, but let that not be the end of our friendship. Those conversations are rare, because usually we start as friends, and then somehow you have to hold people accountable. And when you start that, they're thinking, who are you? Who are you?
We started discussing together.
So
I even brought more money.
Exactly. So the rules of engagement before they're key. We are starting, but what is required of you? What is required of me? Where are we going as a team, and what are the rewards for doing good? At what time should we call out each other? Those tough conversations are rarely held at the beginning, and that's where you find that you have a problem with that.
I think most people just, drink it off at Chadib. And then before you know it, okay, you have a problem that is not solved. Yet again, business has to continue. And you don't know how to move further from that. And if a problem is not solved now, it's going to come back later in the same cycle. And you'd have to
even bigger.
Maybe even bigger, and you still don't know how to. At least if you probably start small, like Nyana mentioned earlier, like what's the bigger picture? What's the vision that we're trying to build here? And then if we have that, then we can probably put our differences aside and disagreements aside, and then choose, okay, we have this on hand, let's move forward. This is a problem, can we solve it? And I think that would be the best way to go at it.
I think also when you focus on the mission, on the work, when I say that the flyer you made, doesn't look nice. I'm not saying you make bad things. I'm saying, you get it? I'm saying that the flyer you made
This is a
time,
dedication
one.
this one
Yes.
did not look nice. And because we want to do certain work, let us redo that flyer. It's not an attack on you. It's that I want us to do our best work. It's about the work. So, taking that criticism and not taking it as an attack on you, but on the advancement of the work and the vision, separating that can be very, very difficult.
Interesting.
I think
I picked.
from my work, I found out that sometimes communication is not what you say; it's what is perceived.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you tell me the flyer wasn't good, it's not what you say; it's what I perceived.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's how you communicate. And so there is a model that we use for giving feedback. Who should I give feedback here?
Me, the only feedback I need is dollars.
So let's say I'm giving feedback to Mark. Yeah, I have two options. I can say, Mark, you know what? That shirt is lousy. And,
Don't tell.
and immediately Mark will be like, who are you to talk to me like that? Yeah. However, I can say, you know what, Mark, what I enjoy about working with you is that you're super creative, you're forward thinking, and I like the input that you give us. If there was an area that I would want you to correct moving forward is to watch your sense of style, because I believe that can make our podcast better. I'm just using this theoretical, I'm not saying that. But overall, you're super, and I love you as a brother. What I've just done is I've attacked the behavior, not the person. But of course, that has context, because if you're a surgeon and you cannot tell the nurse, now nurse, you see what you do very well. No, someone's life is at risk. Someone's life is at risk when we move. So, it's depending on the relationship that you have with the person.
Sudesh, I want to ask about working with your spouse. Can we go there?
Sure.
I think I've been sidelined.
So what happens when you've had a sticky situation at home, but you have to show up at office and lead other people and tolerate each other, I guess? And what happens on a sticky morning?
So in part of my training, one of the things that I was trained in is mental toughness. Mental toughness means that I can isolate issues. Like I could be here. There are times when I show up and I'm working and things at home are falling apart, but you would never know why, because I know how to put things where they belong, and I deal with a person according to the way I'm supposed to deal with them. So I think that came in handy, because I would leave things on the side, and then we're doing work, and then I discover, okay, there are things that have crossed the line and they've come in. Now, since it's an adult, you're not going to go and tell them, hey, you style up, this is work. So I would take on a leader's hat at that point from a business point of view. I let it go, but we debrief, and we have debriefs where we give ourselves feedback, but we ask the person to give themselves feedback. Say, where do you think you're doing great? What do you think you need to work on? And the very first meeting, after it happened, my wife says, you know what, I'm doing this amazing. What I need to learn from you how to separate issues. And I say, okay, do you want me to show you how I do it? Say, I'm open, let's do it. So started coaching her in that area, and she's gotten better over time.
That's gracious
Yeah.
of you.
However, I
Yeah.
know that most people, especially those that talk about, I work with my spouse and it can never work out. It's because sometimes you don't have the skill to deal with those glitches that come in,
Yeah.
and so you label the whole thing as a no-go area.
Yeah, because when you don't work together, you will have a sticky situation. He goes this way, you go this way. Maybe in the day, because you're not seeing them, you might, reconcile, or you come back and pick up. But now you are going together, and you have, you see him in the office.
Church everywhere.
And then people are saying, Sudesh, wonderful man. You want to rub your eyes.
You inspire us.
You inspire us.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of maturity on both ends.
But not only from a spouse point of view. Sometimes it could be you work with your brother, you work with your best friend, you work with your mother. But for me, I think what also helped me is I saw my grandparents work together. I saw my parents work together. So it was sort of, if we start to work together, at least I have a lineage that I can look at. And
you had a bit of an example. Okay.
I need Sudesh. I need that mental toughness.
You need the mental toughness.
Please.
To isolate the issue.
To isolate things. Sometimes I'm like, I'm not even done. I want to continue.
It's something to actually.
Hey, you guys, what's up? Is this your only?
Why are you isolating us? Mental toughness, what?
So I want us to get into the point now of the creativity. One thing I really admired about Sudesh and the work he does is the way they do it. I'm sure you get to experience one time the way you, especially in the team building of it. We've had these things of career sessions at school. Someone comes and talks to you, but the way they do it, it's more practical. There's exercises involved, there's games involved. It makes you laugh, but at the end of the day, you're learning. But how do you manage to, one, come up with those kinds of trainings, but also how do you manage to keep it creative? How do you, from time to time, if you're in Zanzibar this week training, then next time you're in Kenya, it's different personalities, different traditions, but you're able to put that message across. How does that work for you?
I think I'm a beneficiary of living in different parts of the region and of the world, because my parents moved from Dar es Salaam to Mombasa, to Nairobi, to Eldoret, back to Uganda. So they've been moving, and I saw how different cultures behave, and that's why I love culture. I really love culture. I like studying different cultures and how they form. And so for me, even before I deal with anyone, I want to understand the context that they operate in. Because if I can understand your context, then I can be relevant to you. So there's a time I was going to have a training with Congolese entrepreneurs. I spent time reading about Lumumba and reading about the history of Congo, where they've come from, why they speak French, why they are so good at music, what is the socio-political things that they go through. Talk to lots of Congolese, learned a bit of Bokasa ya Bongo, learned a bit of Lingala, and all through I just want to be relevant. And there's something I learned that I was taught, which brings me to the part of the games. My coach usually told me, and he continues to tell me, that play with me and I will know about you more in an hour. Teach me and I will never know who you are for a day.
Is someone writing down the quote?
So games bring out who we are.
I think we need a flyer for that.
It's coming.
When I learned that, then I learned. I was looking at, and the other thing I know, being a student of neurolinguistic programming, that's how people think. I know that adults do not learn unless they have fun. So I'm always looking at how can we take a serious subject like strategy and make it fun and gamify it, but at the same time not lose the essence of what we should be doing. So when you ask the right question, you get the right answer. So essentially that is the thinking that goes on. And of course there's a formula to the madness. There's a way, there's a process that we go through with coming up with creative ideas. Yeah.
You know, when it talks about gamifying the serious issues, I think when high school, so I'm in senior 1, senior 2, of course senior 1 first time you enter chemistry, you're the best. See, second time there, third time, things start to become complex. Sound like chat GPT. So I think senior 2 chemistry becomes the hardest subject on my end, and I really wanted to do science. So I changed school. When I changed school, I get into a school where we had a chemistry teacher who was really fun. Like, he was very, very friendly. He would be in the middle of a class and then he starts to crack jokes. I'm like, okay, if the teacher is this interesting, then I think I can grasp chemistry. And true to form, I started loving chemistry. I started passing it, excelled it O level. I just don't want to brag because Kasuja is watching. I think the most I was aiming for was a C3. It was a C3. It was the most I was aiming for. But I excelled at chemistry because I simply had a teacher who loved what he was doing and made it fun for us. And I think most of the people that actually passed chemistry also passed because of that. Even the guys that used to chop class, they stopped chopping class because the guy was fun. He was cool. He was in our age bracket, and it's interesting. So we're all here for the games.
I want to ask Sudesh about coaching. I imagine, like, if you do it 1 year, 2 years, you have a curriculum, you know that when I enter a room, this is what I'm going to teach. How do you not settle? How do you not go into autopilot? How do you take every training session as importantly as you took the first one that you ever did? And not be like, I don't need to be there. I've done this for 7 years. I can just show up and we'll just change language here and maybe examples. How do you
maintain the originality?
Yes, and just the excellence and
Yeah, so I remember one time I think this was like the second year of doing this. We were coming from a trip. We had been doing some trainings, and we usually debrief and say, how was it? And my team tells me, you know what? You've told this story the same exact way. Like, these guys don't know, but we're getting tired of it. Could you reinvent yourself? And from that day, I take feedback seriously. And I'm like, yeah, they're actually right. So I was like, I need to start reinventing myself. So from then, I've never said, I never do the same thing twice. Yeah. Or if I do it twice, I'll do it in a different way. So I raised the standard, but which also meant that if they did something the same exact way, I'll tell them, hey, you gave me the feedback first. Take the medicine,
Reinvent yourself.
So there's a quote that I like that you cannot change things by fighting the existing reality. To change things, create a new model that makes the existing model obsolete.
Second flyer.
So when the new model here is you're creating a new standard where you have to keep on reinventing yourself. That makes the other model obsolete. So that environment has helped me to thrive. But I think I also set very high standards for myself because I like to create. So I'll look through the things that I did, and I'll either challenge myself to do something totally different. Like one time I challenged myself and said, how can I they were giving me about 10 minutes to speak. And I said, I'm going to put across a message and I'm not going to say a word. So I'm thinking, how can I get a video? How can I get a poem? How can I gamify an aspect of what people need to learn in these 10 minutes? And that was the most effective presentation I've ever made. So I'm always challenging myself and saying, how can I do this? How can I do this? How can I use the environment to teach the people something? Or if I'm in a garden, can I bring up a garden? Can I do this? So for me, it's always a thrill to use the things that are around me. Like if I'm in Zanzibar, how can I use the gardens and the beaches and to deliver the message as effective as I would in a boardroom? So I love to challenge myself and get out of the comfort zone and use the things that are relevant to the people. Just like Jesus, he could not come and tell the fishermen about how to win souls in the corporate. No, they don't get that language. Like, talk to me. And I usually tell this to my team. I tell them, if your son or daughter came to you, or if your niece or nephew came to you and they are 7 years old, how would you describe what you do to them?
We just play games.
Oyto.
And if you cannot do that, then you're not at the level where you can simplify it for others.
Plax, how would you explain what Plax does to a 6-year-old?
Oh, that's interesting.
Oh, about what?
We just play games.
I'd love to hear that.
How would I explain to a 7-year-old? We get together, we play games as we learn from each other. That's what I would say. I don't know. You can help me refine that.
No.